Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Quinney, and this is the Flames Faceoff, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. This is a weekly show where we bring together some of our best writers in the Calgary Flames writing crew, and we discuss all things Flames. Now, to be sure you don't miss an episode, you can like it on YouTube or hit that little red button at the bottom right of your screen and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And be sure to check out some of the great hockey content that we have at thehockeywriters.com. So let's get going. I'd like to introduce our panel this week. We have Mr. Brett Krauss. Hello, Brett.
Hey, how are you doing today, Paul?
Really good, really good. Spring, I think, is just around the corner, although you never know it by the temperature where I am. And we also have Greg Tysowski. Welcome, Greg.
How you doing today, Paul?
Really well. So let's get right into it. We've had big news Thursday night in Calgary with the appointment of Darryl Sutter as the new head coach. What's old is new again in Calgary, I guess. It seems to be going over very well. Brad Treliving at the press conference said Sutter was probably one of the greatest coaches in the NHL. And the Calgary fan base is giving it a standing ovation. So what are your thoughts, Brett? The right choice, and are we going to see this team turned around?
I think it was the right choice because I believe the last show or maybe two shows ago, we talked about how much is it on coaching, how much is it on the players, and I think with Sutter behind the bench, now it's up to the players. You've got a coach behind the bench he's been there, done that. I think he's been to 4 Stanley Cup finals and won 2. And so, now you've got that coach behind the bench. Like, we talked about with the carousel, they've had coaches in the past who don't have much of a track record, and now they do. So we'll see what the players can do now.
Yeah, well, he has said he's not going anywhere. He's there for the long term. I think it's a 3-year contract. Greg, what's your take? Good call or to be determined?
Well, in a press availability, I think it was yesterday, Milan Lucic actually referred to Darryl Sutter as a hard ass, and that's what he is. Let's not beat around the bush. And so I know there are some of these players who, I'm not saying they've been coddled, but like there's players, coaches, and there's these hard asses, and a lot of these guys I don't think have experienced the kind of so-called accountability that they're about to face from Darryl Sutter. And I think there are some players who will probably react very well to this, and there are others who maybe won't. I was reading a lot in the last couple of days about the hiring, and there were some ex-Kings players who were saying, there were some like Drew Doughty who weren't really all that appreciative of Darryl Sutter's coaching style, but others were saying it's kind of like a democracy where he treats the fourth line grinder the same as the first line kind of superstar, and if you can put in the effort, you'll get rewarded, under Darryl Sutter's style of coaching. So, it's kind of remained to be seen how some players are going to react to all this. And we do know that the Flames have had some kind of hard-ass coaches in the last 5 to 6 years. Bob Hartley was actually kind of a hard-ass himself. And eventually, I think the players tuned him out. And even more recently with Bill Peters, he was also quite a hard ass at times as well, and they stopped playing for that guy. So there's a 3-year deal, but and I do think the players will respond to this guy, and I think they will start winning some games. But how long will they put up with this style of coach? I really don't know. As I think the 3 years thing is kind of was a surprise to me, because I thought maybe he'd take over for this year and then see what happens, for next year. But the fact that they signed a 3-year deal tells me that, they're hoping that they won't tune him out after a season and a half or whatever it takes. So, it's a bold move by the Flames. I'm not surprised that Ward got the shaft, but I am surprised they went back to Darryl Sutter. So,
yeah. Well, you raised a good point. I forget who it was writing about the Los Angeles situation when the Kings fired Sutter, and it wasn't because he didn't bring home a third Stanley Cup. It's just that the players stopped playing for him, and he had to go. And so, yeah, that is a good question. How long does the so-called old school approach to coaching, how long does it work? The other thing I was curious about was, when I step back from this and look at it and ask, what was Treliving trying to accomplish with the appointment? Sutter coached teams that were big, physical, grinding teams that played a smothering defensive system. But what you've got in Calgary is an offensively oriented team, high skill, and frankly, they're not all that big. So, if the intention is to bring a Sutter style of hockey to Calgary, I'd argue that they've got the wrong group of players. I don't know. Brett, what's your take on that?
I think just that was kind of the way LA's roster was built. And so just listening to him in the press conference and even Milan Lucic saying that, he can really define a role for every single person on that team. And I think LA was just built of guys like that. You had the Kyle Clifford types, the Trevor Lewises that were in LA during those few years, but they still had guys like Anze Kopitar and Dustin Brown who are skilled guys but big. So I think he has the ability to adapt, because you're going to have to. You can't tell Johnny Gaudreau to go out there and be battling and throwing guys on their ass in the corner. You gotta play or you gotta coach him to his abilities.
Right.
And just from kind of listening to him talk, I think he knows how this team is built. So I think he's got a plan how they can be a winner.
What do you think, Greg? I mean, is it a mismatch? What are they trying to correct here?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about some of the players who might benefit and who might not benefit. And like, Sutter's known for a very kind of defensively responsible style. Like when the LA Kings won 2 cups within 4 years, they weren't doing it with this potent offensive punch that was overwhelming teams. They were doing it defensively. They were playing a smothering
they didn't
defense.
have to score goals.
Yeah. And so, and there's guys on this current roster that I really like who are kind of more offensive minded, like Juuso Välimäki. He makes kind of an equal amount of defensive blunders to like great offensive plays, but he's still considered a rookie and he's getting better. But is playing under Darryl Sutter going to stifle this kid, because Sutter won't put up with the amount of gaffes I think that Välimäki makes. Like he makes some great plays, and he's offensively gifted, and he can really kind of get back and try and cover some of his mistakes at times. But a player like him, if Sutter's going to ask him to be this defensive minded, they're going to, I think, smother his offensive skill. And so that kind of stuff worries me a bit with Sutter, that he's just going to, take some of these guys who are, who are not tuned into his defensive style, only, and kind of take away some of their other positive offensive skills. So, So guys like that, I worry about. So someone like Michael Backlund, who's considered very defensive minded and one of the best two-way centers, they keep calling him, in the league. I think he'll thrive under a system that Darryl will implement, but not everyone will. And so I'm curious as to how he's going to shake up the roster, because I know that Sam Bennett is a guy who's been in the doghouse, a healthy scratch, for 2 games in a row, I believe. And I think he's the kind of player that I think Darryl Sutter would like in the lineup. He would provide a bit more sandpaper and grit, as they call it, and physical style play. So I'm curious also to see how he kind of shakes this roster up, because there's 6 guys in the tacti squad. There's guys in the AHL who would come up. And so how is Darryl Sutter going to shape this lineup into his image and his role? Like, how will he define this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question you raised there, Greg, because, when I was listening to the press conference, Sutter and Treliving made it pretty clear that they think they've got a talent. Well, they've said we got a talented group here. We've got the best goaltender in the league between the pipes, top defenseman playing in front of them, and we're really strong down the middle. So that doesn't sound like a management group that thinks there need to be any wholesale changes in their personnel, but yet the personnel doesn't fit what I think is the coach's style of play. So I don't know. In an article I wrote about it, I termed it a head scratcher. So is it, is a change then? Do they really think that just bringing in a hard ass coach that can yell at a few guys on a regular basis, that, it's 2021. Do you really think the players are going to respond to that? I don't know. Brett, any thoughts on it?
I think same thing like Greg said, it's going to be good for some guys and some guys less. I mean, it's like any workplace. Either you have a boss that you really like or a boss you really hate, and it's just kind of the way your personalities differ. And I think like a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, I think he's a guy who could really excel with a push from a guy who expects a lot. And because he's kind of been a little bit more quieter for me this year. He has been on the score sheet quite a bit in the last few games, but I think he's a guy who could, really excel under a guy like that, just kind of playing hard and like he did when he first came into the league. So I'm interested to see what kind of players can, you see some sort of improvement from.
Well, do you see a change in this, in say the leadership of the team? Giordano is the captain, the acknowledged leader, but would we see guys like Tkachuk come into the fore, kind of a new under Sutter?
You could. I think Tkachuk is destined to be the next captain of this team. But I think Giordano stays the captain. It's kind of a weird circumstances when they strip guys of the C and give it to somebody else, but maybe that's needed sometimes. But even just in the last few games, they've been really showing that Giordano, he's out there in warm-ups kind of hollering at guys and trying to get the team going. And so I think it'll relatively stay the same. My opinion, honestly, on leadership is whether you have the letter or not, guys who are going to be vocal in the room are going to be vocal. So I don't see a ton of change coming there. Yeah.
Well, it may give Tkachuk an opportunity. I mean, I heard the rumor was that when Muzzin flipped the puck to Tkachuk. Now this is going back a few weeks, and then Tkachuk went at Muzzin. He didn't get the support. So the story goes that he felt he should have got from the rest of the Flames. And then at the meeting before the Montreal set, they told him, look, every game doesn't have to be crazy time, so you need to dial this back. So I don't know, maybe under Sutter, maybe he wants to see a little more crazy, and Tkachuk can deliver it.
Well, I did notice last night in the first game, I know Sutter wasn't behind the bench which is, I find kind of strange. I don't know about you guys. I thought it was kind of odd that the guy lives in Alberta, yet he couldn't just drive to Calgary and join the team. There's some kind of COVID protocols going on, but I didn't really realize you had to do that, to join the team that you're in the same province, but that's a whole other story. But he wasn't behind the bench, but they were playing, and especially in that first period, like they were trying to impress the new coach. And you were talking about Tkachuk, and he did have a fight in the first period. Lucic, had a good one with Nurse, and they outshot them 22-10 in that first period, and took a 1-0 lead with a really nice power play goal by Johnny Gaudreau. And so like they were playing, I think, like they were auditioning for the new coach. They were trying to show them, what they were made of. And I thought that was going to lead to like a great 3-period effort, but the Flames, it's kind of the same ish problem again. Like just inconsistent performance. And by the time the third period was rolling around, the Oilers are really pressing, and McDavid is still McDavid. And if you don't contain him, he will burn you. And he did. And so I thought maybe the Flames could hang on to this one, but as the game went on, I found the balance, the momentum just kept shifting from Calgary to Edmonton, and they ended up losing. But I did notice that right off the top, they were playing hard. They were playing like they wanted to show their new coach, that this is who we are. And I thought they did a great job to start. I just wish they could finish. So maybe with Sutter behind the bench, and he's not there till Tuesday. I think up next week is his first practice. So it's still Ryan Huska behind the bench for Ottawa tonight. I'm hoping they can bounce back against a weak Ottawa team and kind of get 2 points. But perhaps with Sutter behind the bench, you'll see maybe that energy, maintained, because Sutter was brought in to try and light a fire under this group, this underperforming group. And I think he will do that. I think he will. And I think in the short term, I think we're going to see changes. I think we're going to see the Flames play a lot harder, for 60 minutes. So this, I think this could be a good thing, but I agree with Paul that it is a bit of a head scratcher because, this guy's been coaching 18 seasons. And I heard him on Hockey Night in Canada talking to Ron McLean, how he was saying, if you count his coaching in the minors, he's getting close to like his, fourth decade, like he's, 4 decades of coaching. And sometimes you think in this day and age, like, do you really need a dinosaur, an old guy like that to kind of take over? And especially with the NHL is getting younger every year, and the average age of teams is getting younger every year. So is it the right pick? I don't know, but I think we'll see short-term improvement for sure. And if we don't, then I don't know what else the Flames can do. Like they change coaches and they can't really move guys in this COVID era with trades. So if this doesn't work, I have no idea what's going to come next.
Yeah. You alluded to something there. It seems to me the way they were playing last night, people think their jobs are on the line, which, may be a good thing for it'll work for a while. Brett, any thoughts on who really needs to be worried about their job? We've been complaining about the fourth line for the last few weeks, but who should be worried?
It's kind of a bit of a tough question right now, just because it'll be interesting to see kind of the style they end up playing here under Sutter. But I think you kind of got to stick with your core. I think you got Johnny Gaudreau is one of the best Flames that's ever put the jersey on, and so I think you got to continue to build around him. And I'm not sure who could be out the door. I think Derek Ryan coming back into the fourth line really helped them a lot. He's very, very good defensively, so I think that kind of helped the fourth line get going. And Brett Ritchie's even got into the lineup and looked fairly decent he got himself a goal against Ottawa and a couple chances last night. So I think they're what was it that Brad Treliving said, that there's times for action and times for patience.
Right.
And so I think the action was hiring Darryl Sutter, and now I think they're going to sit back here for probably right up till the trade deadline and, see where they're at. I think they're going to have to reassess and see where the team's at and how they're playing by then. Yeah. And kind of go from there, because they've got short time to turn this around, but I think you need a couple weeks here to see what they can do. Yeah.
Greg, what are your thoughts? You mentioned Valimaki. You're right. He's got a plus minus of -8. Nesterov, same thing, -8. I don't know.
I was
How
actually
long is that going to
chatting.
be tolerated?
Yeah, I was chatting with a couple of buddies via our group chat, and they things like, are we going to see like Michael Stone, who's currently in the AHL roster, brought back up, because he's kind of an old veteran player that the Flames have counted on, the last few years for like who can eat up with some third pairing minutes, and I think that would be like a step in the wrong direction, to bring him back. But if Sutter is really going to demand this accountability and defensive responsibility, like young guys like Val Mackey, who I think is one of the defensemen of the future for this team, should be allowed to develop. And if he's going to be, this very defensive minded, and not take any chances, that's not who he is. So we could see someone like that pushed maybe to the taxi squad, and have someone like Michael Stone brought back up to the big club just to play some old fashioned defensive minded, lockdown minutes. So that's actually a good point, that Sutter could switch some things up like that. And I think some of these underperforming guys like Dominic Simone, who's been a healthy scratch more than he's played, will he see the ice under Darryl Sutter? And there's all kinds of these guys on the taxi squad. Sutter has to look and see what he's got to see if he can try and shake up this roster a bit, because if the guys who are currently in the roster aren't going to make a difference, if they're not going to get some wins and start making up ground on Montreal and Winnipeg and Edmonton, who knows what we'll see in the roster in the coming weeks. But I'm pretty sure the Flames will have a better effort tonight, and then heading into next week against Montreal, those two games are pretty crucial. I don't, if they lose both of those, I'm not really sure where they go. I'm not really sure if the winning percentage required is too much to take on. So at that point, this is very interesting times. I don't know if the next couple of weeks are going to be crucial to the Flames season here. So has the hiring of Sutter been enough to turn this season around? I guess we're about to find out. Well,
I will say this of Sutter, expectations are soaring in Calgary, and he's set the bar high himself. I remember in the press conference him saying, a shoot from the hip type move. I've got unfinished business here, and the reference was to a Stanley Cup championship that they missed in 2004. So the pressure is going to be on him. But let's switch gears, talk about the past week. The Flames played 3 games. They're going to have their 4th game tonight against the Senators. They split 2 games with the Sens, the league's punching bag. I was, hoping they'd pick up all 4 points. And then they dropped a close one to Edmonton. They're tied for 5th spot with Vancouver, for 5th spot with Vancouver. 4 points back of Montreal for the 4th and final playoff spot. How should Treliving be feeling here? Greg, you mentioned the 2-game set coming up with Montreal. They're going to be critical. I don't know what's your take on the week and the week coming up. Brett, start with you.
They're going to need a couple wins here. I've been kind of searching around the internet, and a lot of people, kind of project that 63 points is going to get you in the playoffs. And so Flames basically need 40 points here in the last 20, 30 games here. So that's a tall order. So they're going to have to start stringing wins together. They can't win one, lose one. They're going to have to, go on a bit of try and go on a heater here and collect some points while, Montreal had a big win last night, but they were kind of on the downfall here this past week. So they kind of got to make up ground here when other teams are sort of faltering here in these next couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, you raise a good point. If I had heard a team would need 65 points to make it in the playoffs, but close enough. So quick math, I guess they'd have to play 650 hockey, basically win 2 of every 3 games they play to make it in the playoffs from here on in. Greg, if you were a betting man, how much money would you put down with the odds makers on that happening?
Before the coaching change, I've been watching this team, and I would say, I would put no money down because they just seem to be so inconsistent. It was one step forward, one step back. The 500 record, it would not be good enough. And with this coaching change, I think the odds have probably like doubled or tripled that they're going to actually get into the playoffs, because I think Darryl Sutter is going to shake things up, and he's going to get this group to play that at the top of their, capabilities here. So I think with Darryl Sutter behind the bench, this short term, and by short term I mean this season, I think he's going to see some results. I really do. I do think that he's going to get the most out of this group, and it starts with this next 3 games. They should, they have to beat Ottawa, and if they do, they'll be like 3-2 against Ottawa, which is the worst record I think of any team in our division against Ottawa. They have to beat Ottawa, and they have to, I think, they're capable of winning back-to-back against Montreal. Montreal had a big win last night, but they've been sliding, as Brett's been saying, the last couple of weeks, and they tried a coaching change, and that hasn't really amounted to anything in Montreal. So I think this next 3 games is crucial to the season. If they win those 3 games, I think they're on their way to that at least 4th and final playoff spot. So like I said, I'm not a huge Sutter fan. Like over the years, I've been following the Flames long enough to follow all 3 Sutter brothers since Brian and was when in the late 90s. So I've never been a huge fan of their style of coaching. But if they can get if this Darryl Sutter can get the most out of the guys this season, then I think them making the playoffs has just dramatically improved their chances by this coaching change. So I think this will impact in a positive way. I'm a betting man. I say bet on the Flames to make the playoffs.
Brett, what about you? Are they capable of a pace of 2 out of 3 games, 666?
You know what? Yeah, I think their odds are higher than they were, but I think it's still a good bet to take. I'd lay down some money on that they could do it, because Sutter, he came into Calgary when they were faltering in late 2003, took him to the playoffs, took him to the Cup final. He came into LA, snuck them into the playoffs, and won them a Stanley Cup. So here we are once again. The Flames are faltering, and in comes Darryl Sutter halfway through the season. So he's got the track record of whipping a team into shape in quick order and at least sneaking them in. So yeah, I think I'd take that bet. If Markstrom plays well, and if he gets these guys, especially the 3rd and 4th lines, if he can get them scoring, then they still have a chance. There's still some runway left here this season.
Yeah, hope so. I checked. There are only 7 teams of the 31 in the league that are playing at or better than 666. So it's going to be quite a change for them. Do you think you'd see what do you think the biggest change would be in the style of play? And I'm thinking here, the problem from what I've seen in the Flames recently is they just can't get the offensive zone. Their entry is horrible. Turnovers at the blue line, and even once they're in the offensive zone, they really can't hold it. And I think that shows up if you take a look at the goals that they've scored. If you take the duck shoots out, that the goals they registered against Ottawa, they're one of the worst in the league. Do you see a change in what do you think will change under Sutter that we'd see coming right out the gates? Would it be on the offense or the defense, or do you have a feel for that at all?
I think probably the defensive side. You guys have talked about how he has these defensive minded teams, and I think that'll be a big one, is being harder to gain the zone against. I think you gotta square up your defense first before you can start thinking about getting up into the offensive zone. So I think we'll probably see them take care of their own end a lot better here right away. I'm not exactly sure how that'll look, but I think the zone entries against them, there's going to have to be a big change there, because they have looked too easy just just to gain the zone, not necessarily even get a shot on net, but just to gain the zone for other teams these past, couple of weeks.
Yeah. Greg, what do you think? What's the biggest change we're going to see under Sutter? Once, I'm going to tune into the game tonight, and what am I going to see?
Well, I was watching the press conference as well, and he didn't really allude to much structural changes. Like I think he kind of was alluding to, like, whipping them into shape and kind of like, and just becoming more responsible, and just basically taking what he has and just improving on it. Like, this is a group, the core group is not that far removed from first place in the Western Conference. They had the second best record in the NHL, and the core group of guys is still there. And so I don't really know if we're going to see a lot of structural system-wide changes. I just think Darryl is just going to try and instill some kind of responsibility with these guys and accountability. And I think he's just counting on them to just kind of pull up their socks, and just because their give a crap meter it's been low, I think, at game, just been on and off, hot and cold. Play great one game, play like one of the worst teams in the league the next game. And I think Darryl Sutter, like I said, I don't think we're going to see huge changes to like offensive and defensive structure and system. I think we're just going to see him, getting the most out of these guys. And that's why he was hired. You can't fire the entire team, but you can fire the coach, especially in this COVID era. That's really the only option that Brad Treliving felt that he had. And I think it was probably one of the last bullets in his chamber. I'm thinking, if this doesn't work, I don't think Brad Treliving is very long for this world, for at least in the Flames organization. So I think this is do or die time for the Flames. This has to work.
Well, I mean, somebody said, the easiest thing to do is fire the coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the tough stuff is changing up the core of a team and changing up management, including the general manager's job. So I agree with you. That's probably if they don't succeed this year, if there's no decent run in the playoffs, I think you're probably looking at the harder stuff to come. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. As always, great discussion. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks everybody for joining us for this edition of Flames Faceoff. We'll be back next week with another edition. But in the meantime, you can check out the Flames Weekly. It comes out every Monday, and it recaps everything that happened in the previous week and takes a look at what's coming up this week. And be sure to check out some of the great writing that we've got here at thehockeywriters.com. Thanks very much. See you next week.